What is up, nerd and nerdettes of the interwebs? It's Mr. Brady Jones, and by my side, as always, Senor Adam.
Hola.
We are bringing you a Captain Marvel review, full spoilers ahead, and so let's just jump into it right now.
Alright, well, first off, we should probably talk about stuff leading up to this movie. For me personally, this has been one of the Marvel movies I've been the least hyped for in a long time. And part of that is just due to how much hype everyone else has been putting on it. Like, this has been one of the most hyped up by the media in a while, next to, like, Infinity War. But it's just been overhyped, and that kind of got rid of the hype for me. But it was kind of like Aquaman, that the trailers really didn't give me any motivation to go see the movie. I was going to go see it because it's Marvel, but that was about it. And there's the obvious controversy with Rotten Tomatoes changing their format so that they can make everything better for audience reviews, even though they just conveniently happen to do that for Captain Marvel, even though people were trashing it. And apparently, there's no reason this movie could be bad. It's just the fact that everyone's conservative and hates women.
Well, the thing with the Rotten Tomatoes thing is that it was just a bunch of people who haven't seen the movie were just getting on there and trying to give it like a low audience score, a low want to see score or whatever. It's like wanting to see it. There's like a score where audiences would rate how much they want to see it.
Yeah.
And they would give that like a terrible score.
Because they didn't want to see it.
Well, there was a trolling aspect, because it's like...
There kind of was, yeah.
To that. And that's why they got rid of that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really hear a lot of hype for it. And maybe that's just because I didn't, click on any videos that would say Captain Marvel, because I wasn't really excited for Captain Marvel.
I didn't really hear a lot of hype. I just saw it. On Facebook and Instagram, about every third post or something was some ad for Captain Marvel, and then every single time you're watching TV, every commercial break, there's another trailer for Captain Marvel. It's just...
I don't watch TV that much anymore, so I can't really say anything about that. But the only real hype I really heard behind it was when it got first released, press screenings, and then you had people who were reviewing movies that I watch, like the people at Collider, Perry Nemiroff, would give it these high scores and say this is a great portrayal of Captain Marvel and it's one of the best MCU movies. And you would get some people like that who are in LA and probably have more of a liberal view on the world would give it a very high score. So that's really the only hype I have about it. But let's see if the movie lived up to its hype. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Speaking of spoiler alerts, this is going to be a very spoiler-heavy review, and we're just going to jump right into it. And the first thing we really want to talk about is the plot twist from the Skrulls. About, 3/4 way into the movie? Halfway into the movie somewhere? We find out that up to this point we had been siding with the Krees, which is Captain Marvel's people, or whom she believes are her people and her race. And they had been fighting a war with the Skrulls, which is a alien race. The Krees are also alien. The Skrulls are an alien race of people that can shapeshift and take any form that they see or that they imagine. And so, through that, and they don't want to... Is it that they don't want to join the Kree Empire?
They don't really explain. They just say that it's completely one-sided. The Skrulls say they tried to subjugate us and we didn't stand for it, so they hate us now. Which, first off, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the Kree are never billed as having an empire or anything. They're just I don't have a problem with the plot twist of making the Kree bad guys. I do dislike the fact they're making the Skrulls the victims in this, because Skrulls are villains, and the Secret Wars, they've always been villains, and I can sort of understand, not necessarily making them just the bad guys, but they're not just these peaceful people who just want to have this little part of the galaxy all to themselves without anyone. You're shapeshifters. They would be a cool good guy. Shapeshifting's a cool power to have in a war or something.
Like Nightcrawler.
Yeah, do something like that, but either make them active characters and don't just make them peaceful people. But they don't like the Kree, they don't have like this empire they're trying to take over the universe or anything. They have their own planet and they carry out missions for the Kree.
This problem that I have with the Kree Empire is that they're not explained. Because seeing the ship, you got like a black guy, you got a white guy, Jude Law, and then you got a couple of blue people in the background. So is it just like a race of people that look like humans who just have different skin colors, like blue is just like a race? Or is it like is it like a civilization where they take in a race and that race calls themselves Kree, but it's still like a different race of people?
Or do most people have an origin similar to Captain Marvel, where like they were found somewhere, and because like they explain that she gets her Kreeness stuff from Jude Law's blood or whatever. It's like, so they just pick people who are like misfits or something, or just deemed worthy to join the Kree, and then they give them a blood transfusion and they're Kree. They don't explain.
Because the understanding that I had of it was that the Skrulls didn't want to, like, the Krees would take civilization and bring it into their empire, and like would make them a Kree, but the Skrulls didn't want to be Krees. They wanted to keep their independence from them, and so that's what this whole war was about. That's the understanding that I took away from it, but I wasn't 100% sure. They didn't really explain that too well, but that was my understanding, and I have a different opinion than Adam. I'm a sucker for a good plot twist, and so I actually like the idea of the Skrulls being the bad guys. I'm not the biggest comic book reader in the room or in the world, but my comic book expertise sticks more with the DC anyway than it does with Marvel. You can still do the Secret Invasion even though the Skrulls are the good guys, because all it takes is one guy, like 20, 30 years, because this movie takes place 25 years in the past, and the leader who was the good guy, Ben Mendelsohn's character, which I like that because Ben Mendelsohn is always the bad guy, and so that was a nice little twist.
Interesting, yeah.
It was a twist because you're like, oh, the Skrulls are obviously going to be bad, not just from the comics, but it's Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
So it's like they got to be bad.
See,
So now
it's not like there's no way they could do the Secret Wars well. But see, now what they're going to do is, like, obviously you can easily explain why the Skrulls are still there, because, like, oh, they look exactly like everyone else. They shapeshifted, so they've been on Earth for 25 years now. That makes sense. But if there's any Skrulls that are villains, they're going to call them radicals now. And that's the new term for everyone who's bad. Like, I get most of the time you can't judge a whole race of people or species of aliens or something based on the actions of a few people. But if there's anyone who's going to be the real villain in Marvel, they're going to be called, like, radical Skrulls or something. Like, there's no way that someone can actually be bad. They have to be radical. Like, make the good Skrulls the radicals, because they're going against what everything has happened in the comics. So, I don't know. It's not like it's not going to work. It's just going to be frustrating.
Yeah, so, other than the Skrull plot twist, what exciting stuff happened in the movie, Adam? Yeah, pretty much. Thank you for summarizing it. Nothing really exciting happens besides the Skrull plot twist. It's basically all formulaic. Aside from that, Captain Marvel is actually a human the whole time. If you know anything about Captain Marvel, like I said, I don't read Marvel comics as much as I'd like to, but you know, I have a basic understanding of who this Captain Marvel is, Miss Marvel, and the Carol Danvers character. I have a basic understanding.
Miss Marvel's a different character.
No, it's the same.
No.
Carol Danvers is Miss Marvel.
No.
Is it?
Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel is like.
But Carol Danvers was Miss Marvel first, and then.
No.
I'm 90% sure.
Miss Marvel is currently Muslim, and is like Mr. Fantastic and like all stretchy and stuff. Completely different character.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
As Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers. As Carol Danvers.
Oh, okay.
March 3rd, or Marvel Superheroes number 13, March 1968, as Miss Marvel.
Okay.
They just have a different Miss Marvel now, but she was originally Miss Marvel, and then became Captain Marvel. Because I think the original Captain Marvel was died in like 90, or not 98, but like in the 80s, and they just didn't have a Captain Marvel, and then Miss Marvel picked up the mantle in like, I want to say like 2011, 2012, pretty recently.
Okay.
I'm supposed to be the guy who doesn't know Marvel comics here.
Okay.
But, yeah, it was originally that. So if you have a basic understanding of the Carol Danvers character, you can pretty much see where the story's coming from. Jude Law, like, nothing about Jude Law made me think, okay, this guy's a good guy. Like, and I just
he just seems like the stereotype before the plot twist. He just seems like the stereotypical mentor, like military mentor for Captain Marvel.
He had the face. Like, there was something about his face the whole time where it's like, yeah, I can tell you're gonna be a bad guy. I just thought he was gonna turn on the Kree Empire and like be a radical to the Kree Empire. I know you don't like the word radical, but he's gonna be like he's gonna turn against the Kree Empire or civilization or whatever they call themselves, and just be a bad guy in that way. I didn't really think
I didn't
that.
Catch that at all.
You didn't catch that?
No.
I
Jude Law never plays a bad guy.
I know, but there was just something about his face where it's just like, I can't trust him. Maybe it's the eyes. Maybe he was able to get that look in his eyes. I don't know, but
he looked like normal Jude Law.
Okay, well maybe it's just me, but
I think you're trying to act like you knew what you were doing, but you really didn't.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. If anyone's gonna portray the Kree and be a bad guy, it'd be Ronan, I figured, or whoever the black guy with the people wielding swords, because he was at the beginning of the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, I also didn't think Ronan was gonna have a big role in the movie.
I didn't think he'd have a big one. I think they'd at least maybe.
But that was
explain
also
why.
another hint where I felt like I thought it was just going to be Jude Law's character. Notice how we're saying Jude Law's character, not the actual character's name, because we can't remember it. But that was another thing. I mean, the face was like a weird thing, and it was like there was something like untrustworthy about him. I want to say it was in his eyes, but I didn't feel like this was a good guy. But another thing was Ronan, and like when he came in, I was like, okay, because they've already established Ronan as a bad guy in the MCU, so it's like they aren't gonna put like the good guys on Ronan's side, and that Ronan was like leading a force of good guys when he was a bad guy the whole time. So I just presumed that Jude Law's character was gonna side with Ronan and like turn against the Kree Empire almost. Right. But turns out the Krees were the bad guys the whole time.
Okay, so going into more just the characters in the movie. Going into this movie, I knew from Super Carlin Brothers, they had a video, that I knew going in that that Goose was going to be a Flurkin. And I was kind of torn about, no pun intended, about what happened with Fury's eye. Because a friend of mine had mentioned, and I thought of it too, that it'd be cool if, it'd be interesting, kind of funny, if Fury loses his eye to just a cat or a Flurkin, and then like he talks about how like last time I trusted someone I lost an eye, and then it'd be funny if it's like, oh, it's just a cat that got his eye out. But it'd also be better if I think it could be better if it was actually a serious thing, because when he first says that in Winter Soldier, it's a very serious moment. And going back to Winter Soldier, I'm never going to look at that the same.
Yeah.
Winter Soldier is not a funny movie. And now, because of this origin, it's gonna taint this whole scene and be like, it's funny because it was a cat instead of actual something serious. But like, it was funny, but overall, I think they should have made it serious for losing his eye.
I think he should have lost his eye in a manner of it was accidentally a result of something that Captain Marvel did, or in my opinion, what would have been even better. Even though technically he would have trusted Captain Marvel after it, so it might not have worked as well with the whole last time I trusted somebody. But his superior, the guy who you actually see Ben Mendelsohn's actual face when he's not in the prosthetic, if like when Ben Mendelsohn's like the Skrull that he plays took on his. I don't know any of the characters' names.
I don't know they ever say his name.
So it's really hard just saying like this guy. Oh, he. But Ben Mendelsohn's prosthetic Skrull took the role of Nick Fury's superior, and they had a fight scene. So if that fight scene would have led to Nick Fury losing his eye, I feel like that would have been a lot better.
Because like I knew going into this movie that we're going to see Fury lose his eye, because in all the trailers he has two eyes, and if you have any character that has something like that's going to happen to him, it's going to be in a movie that it shows starting off he has that, and I knew especially that he would lose it, because the whole point of this movie is that you can't trust people you thought you could trust. So I thought like they're going to have this is a great movie for opportunity to lose his eye, and they had good opportunity for actual story and character development, but they didn't, and it was kind of dumb. So.
Another big character that we should talk about is the character of Captain Marvel herself, and the problems that we have with Captain
First
Marvel.
off, I will say though that I was relatively impressed with how not overly feminist this movie was. Because Brie Larson is a feminist, and she had stated that she wanted to make this movie a quote big feminist movie, and I think they had they could have gotten away with it if they really wanted to, and I was impressed that they didn't, but they didn't do as well as they could, just as a character. The problem, overall, this really wasn't a great movie, and the problem is that since it just simply wasn't a good movie, it's going to get a lot of flack critically, and the problem is, like, the producers and, like, leftists and stuff, they're going to say, oh, everyone's just hating it because it's a woman character. Like, no, really nothing that specifically dealt with her being a female hero made the movie bad. It's just the fact that it wasn't a good movie, and it's just not going to come out as that. It's going to come out as people just hating women. So, okay, so part of the thing with they didn't make her overly feminist, but I think they tried to, like, subtly or blatantly make her sort of feminist. Like, she does all these cool things, and they basically say, they don't make it obvious, but they still kind of, and I don't want to get into a whole bunch of, like, conspiracy subliminal stuff or anything, but, like, it just seemed like they were trying to push it, like, oh, she's doing all these great things because she's a woman. Like, she's just a superhero. If you want to start making, like, equality or whatever, then just treat her like any hero, and just be like, hey, she's doing all these awesome things, and she's just a hero. But part of it too, like, we'll talk about the humor later, or lack thereof, but her quips and stuff that a lot of superheroes have, she wasn't funny at all, and there's almost like an arrogant cockiness with all of her quips and stuff that if she had just been a little more lighthearted, it would have at least made sense rather than her just being cocky. And
yeah, I feel like they try to make her funny, but they also try to make her too serious, and that doesn't work.
Yeah,
like that can work if you have somebody playing off the humor. Like, if you have a less serious person to make the jokes and the funniness that would come from Captain Marvel would be the fact that she is serious.
Yeah.
But they just had Nick Fury by her side, which is also a character. In this one, he's not as serious as he is in the future, but it's like you got two serious characters, aside from when we see Goose.
Samuel Jackson does a very good job overall of doing both a serious and a funny character, even in the same thing. Like, because there have been several movies where he's a sarcastically serious, funny actor. So if anyone can pull it off, he can. Yeah. Brie Larson didn't. So. Yeah. Okay, so her backstory. It wasn't compelling at all. It wasn't good. And again, this isn't to say that the fact that she's a woman made it bad. It's just, and I had no problem with the fact that her story being that she grew up being, like, suppressed or whatever by a lot of men, having to prove herself back in the era that she's growing up. Yeah, that makes sense. And, like, she's probably grew up in more of a rural area. But they should have spent more time at least explaining it or giving us a reason to like her. And I'll admit that part of it may be that just the fact that I'm a man, I simply don't understand what it would be like to finally see a movie with a woman protagonist in this sort of light. Like, there may just be something that I'm just missing because I'm just not a woman. But I think part of it is just she doesn't have a compelling story. Like, there's the scene when she finally, like, she has her breakout moment, and they have, like, the montage of, like, her getting up from all these defeats and stuff, and nothing wrong with having that, but they tried to make, like, you can tell it's supposed to be a powerful scene, and it really wasn't. A couple of those scenes had just been introduced 5 seconds earlier, and like, the only thing that she had seen of those, like, that's another problem with the plot, sort of, is, like, the majority of this movie is her trying to find out about her past, and really she doesn't find anything else about it that we didn't already know based on the few flashbacks. And I get part of it is, like, she's not sure exactly what they are because she's only seeing snippets of it, and we know because it's a movie, so therefore that has to do with the plot. But you'd think she'd understand a little bit more, or we'd at least be able to see a little bit more. Like, we don't get any really extra scenes aside from a 5-second scene of her being thrown on the beach as a kid. That's the only extra thing we get from when she finally understands who she really is. And another 5 minutes explaining things and maybe developing herself as a character a little more would have made more sense. Made her more of a compelling character.
I also don't understand. Like, I get how she got her powers. It was like shooting the Tesseract or whatever, or the core, and it gave her the powers. But it's like, why did it give her the powers instead of just like killing her, or like sending her? Like, the Tesseract is the space stone. Like, why wouldn't it like send her somewhere else in the universe? Why would it just give her these magical powers? It's not like it was the Power Stone or anything else. Like, this is the first superhero where I'm just like, I don't get why they got their powers. Everybody else, it makes sense. Iron Man built a
See, that's another thing too, is that like the hype for the movie. Like, there's like that trailer that like has that's showing all the other heroes, and it's like some heroes are built or something, and then it's like it's showing some are built, some are made, some are born or whatever, and then it's showing Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor and all of them, and like see how she's becomes a hero. Like, she shot an engine and for some reason gave her powers. Like, that just seems, there's always like the dumb, like the stereotypical hero thing of like you touch something that's radioactive so you get the powers. And this was a lot like, it felt a lot like that, but worse, because you can just say, oh, radioactive stuff gives you powers, because radioactive stuff doesn't have the potential to send you to another part of space, or it's not an Infinity Stone. So
a few other little things that we wanted to touch upon. SHIELD, the acronym of SHIELD, which stands for, do you know? I don't know either.
I want to say it's, I know the D is defense.
Yeah.
I want to say it's like security, homelands. I used to know it. You know what? Gotta Google it. Any guesses?
Security, homeland, intelligence, something defense.
Ah, okay. Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division.
Division.
Yeah. It had also stood for Strategic Hazard Intervention Espionage Logistic Directorate. And originally, Supreme Headquarters International Espionage Law Enforcement Division. Okay, we learn something new every day.
In the MCU, the name SHIELD was created in 2008, right? It was at the end of Iron Man 1.
Yeah, because Coulson says the whole name. He's like, we really need to come up with a better name for that. Or like he's at the very end, he says, just call it SHIELD. Yeah, so.
Yeah. And so that's really when SHIELD gets its name. Not before 1995. And so that was something that I had seen in the trailers, and it like threw me off. And so seeing it in the movie, like, I knew it was coming in the movie, but it was also something that I did not like. Another thing, little thing, actually it's not really a little thing, because humor has become like a staple of the MCU. Every movie has got humor in it, whether it's a straight up pretty much comedy like Ant-Man, or it's a more serious piece like Infinity War. They still have humor in them. That's a staple of what makes an MCU movie. And this movie's, I don't think I laughed once.
There were a couple of times, but that was...
I think I did laugh, but it was and nothing that Captain Marvel had said.
No, definitely not.
I don't think it was even anything that Fury had said.
There were a couple times, I think. I laughed when he goes all... When he, like, gets all, like, puppy dog or kitten voice on Goose the first time he sees the cat.
Well, I had seen that in the trailer.
I'd seen it in the trailer too, but it was kind of a funny part.
I didn't laugh.
The parts that were supposed to be humor were not funny, and then part like when like the dry sarcastic humor of the Skrulls seemed kind of forced and only put in there so that you would like the Skrulls even more. Because like the scene like when, I guess it was kind of funny when Ben Mendelsohn's character, when her Captain Marvel's pilot friend says that she'll put her foot somewhere that shouldn't belong, he's like, I'm supposed to guess where that is? And that was kind of funny. Not really. And
I
then
didn't laugh at that either.
it seemed kind of forced. And then later on, the same character, when he's like, "Really, you're my science guy?" Like the whole orbit thing, basic physics. It just seemed kind of random. And then, like, the silence following that joke is the reaction of everyone. Like, as in, you didn't laugh because it wasn't funny. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's a very disappointing movie.
One positive that we have about this movie, I know it seems like we've been nagging on a little bit, de-aging technology is great.
Mm-hmm.
We saw, well, I guess we didn't really see it in Star Wars the first time, because Rogue One, you had, like,
Tarkin and then
lookalikes take the face of somebody else, but in Guardians Volume 2, you got Kurt Russell de-aged all the way. In Civil War, you see it happen to Robert Downey Jr. as he becomes like an 18, 19-year-old Tony Stark. And so you get it here, and it's it is the entire movie for Coulson and Fury.
Yeah.
So that is a very good thing. Very positive thing coming out the movie was the technology and the de-aging technology, and so people will live on forever in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That is basically what I have from this. And the last little bit of other, and we're going to go back to complaining. I had a moment where I had reflections back to Solo, a Star Wars story, when Han Solo gets his name Solo. When he's like talking to the dude, and it's like, "Oh, so you're by yourself? Okay, so we'll just call you Solo." It was basically that, but for the Avengers, where Nick Fury is like trying to come up with a name for this new project, or what is initiative? That's what it is.
Yeah, it's like the Protector Initiative is the first thing he has, and then
he looks at a picture. He looks to the side, sees a picture of Carol Danvers in her plane. And it says the word Avenger. Avenger is like her nickname, which no one calls her Avenger in the entire movie. That's the thing number one that I didn't like, is like, you just see it on the plane, like it doesn't come up anywhere else in the movie. And it feels like it was just stuck on there, like somebody was like, "Ooh, it'd be cool if we make the Avenger name tie into this somehow, so let's just stick it on there at the very end." And so, the Avenger Initiative and the name Avengers comes from Carol Danvers.
See, that's... Yeah, like including that, but they're trying to force her in to the Avengers at this point, and so we'll address this in a second. But like, of all the Avengers that are going to be in Endgame, she's the only one who has really no motivation to be there. She hasn't been involved in absolutely anything aside from this one movie which we're about to say, really doesn't have much bearing on anything. And then she's apparently supposed to be like important now, but like they're not just bringing her in, they're like forcing her in, like, "Oh, she's been here the whole time." Like, she's really the one who started the Avengers Initiative. Like, she's the inspiration for that. Because in the scene when Coulson walks in, he's like, "You think we'll find any other ones?" Like, "Well, we found her without even looking." Like, you could say, how about that Captain America guy a few years ago? Like, we had him. His first movie is called The First Avenger, so you'd think that maybe he would be attributed a little bit to the Avengers Initiative. And then we see the first introduction of the Tesseract, aside from chronologically the first introduction of the Tesseract, aside from Avengers: The First Avenger. But in the first Avenger movie, in Avengers, like the original Avengers movie, when they're talking about Phase 2 of the project with the Tesseract, Fury points at Thor and says, like, we're weaponizing it because of him. Like, he's the reason that we're weaponizing the Tesseract, because he came to Earth and we realized that we're outgunned. Not Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And I get that that's just a continuity error, but they should have a better way to do that than just be like, "Oh, it's really this person who's been here this whole time that no one's actually heard of yet in the MCU, and she's just suddenly the real reason that we're doing all this." And like, any sort of connection that she actually has to the rest of the Avengers in the MCU was just kind of shoved in there. It was dumb and frustrating.
Overall, I think that's the biggest problem that we have with the movie, is that it's, when you make a franchise that's like 21, 22, is it 21 or 22 now?
This is 21.
This is 21. When you have a franchise that's 21 movies long and is only going to get bigger, continuity is bound to become a problem after
Yeah.
a while. But so much continuity problems have happened from this movie alone, and it feels like they're trying to push out stuff that had already happened. They're like, screw continuity. Continuity doesn't matter in this universe. We're gonna change up a few things so that Captain Marvel fits better. And I think that's the problem that we have, and why we've got this opinion, like, oh, it's this feminist thing, because in the world right now, feminism is growing and it's becoming a thing, and I'm not totally against that. I don't think neither of us are completely against that. But the problem is that when you have that in the real world, and then you have a movie like this come out and be like, we're going to change things for the woman character. It makes it such a big deal. They make it such a big deal in the marketing that, oh, a woman's finally going to get her own movie in the MCU, and then just so happens to be in that movie, you're starting to really, the continuity now is becoming an issue, a bigger issue than it was in the other movies. And I think that's the biggest problem that both of us have coming out of it. Yeah, it wasn't like a great movie. Like, there were some issues with it, like story-wise, character-wise. You know, overall, I think we probably would have enjoyed it more if we didn't have those continuity issues. And for me, this movie falls under the ranks of Solo, a Star Wars story in the Star Wars universe. It's a movie that you have, like, it's a part of the universe, but it's a movie that I'm never going to want to watch again, just because I feel like it's going against everything.
I'd say it's worse than Solo, but yeah.
I'd rank it about the same as Solo, because for me, Solo was a movie that I'll never watch again. It kind of, like, it took away everything that I had known about the Solo character. And it's a movie it's a fine movie on its own, taken out of this universe, but once you put it in this universe, then it takes away the appeal for me. And it's a movie that, even if it's on Netflix, I'm not going to watch it on a rainy day. I'm not going to watch it in the background while I'm playing Civilization 6 or whatever. I'm never going to watch this movie again. Even in the lead up to Endgame, I'm going to try and watch all the MCU movies. I'm not going to try and watch this one, even though I physically couldn't because it'd be in theaters. I mean, I guess I could. I could go pay a ticket to see it again. Yeah. But it's not one that I'd want to watch again. It's not one that I'm going to want to watch when Avengers 5 comes out, and then I'm going to want to rewatch all the MCU movies again. It's one that I'm going to skip. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is.
She has she has no part in Endgame. Because to a certain point, this movie was kind of doomed to fail a little bit by the fact that everyone is expecting so much for this being the last movie before Endgame. And there's just a certain amount of that no matter what you do, you're not gonna meet some expectations. That's not the director's fault, partially, but this was just simply a bad movie. And I was at least expecting something to get me motivated for Endgame because of this movie. And yes, this movie got me hyped up for Endgame because I was so disappointed. I was just waiting for the next thing. Like, I watched the movie, I'm waiting for the post-credit scene, I see the last one of Goose hacking up the Tesseract, and immediately I think, oh, that was cute. When's Endgame again? And then I completely, I almost forgot the movie immediately. That's an exaggeration, but I would have expected, for the fact they're billing her as the key to stopping Thanos for some reason, and really the only difference between her and Iron Man is the Iron Man has to recharge. And, like, she's not that amazing of a character. Yeah, she's powerful, but aside from, as I said before, she has no motivation to be involved in Endgame, aside from the fact that Fury pushed a button. And, like, everyone else is there because many of their friends and family have died. And she's just there because a little light turned on. And she just has no part in this.
Alright, so I think that's our opinions.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Where would we rank this? Scale 1 to 10.
Like, oh, okay, we're ranking it on a scale of 1 to 10.
We compared it comparatively. We would say that it's about the same as Solo for Star Wars, but
ranking it as a movie, not just as an MCU movie.
As a movie, just as a movie.
5.6.
Really, I was gonna say 6.
Okay.
As an MCU movie, I would say that's about lower.
I'd say it'd be 4.7.
I could agree with that for
as
MCU.
An MCU.
Yeah.
As a movie in general, I'd say 5.6.
Yeah, because
5 would be the average. 5 being an average, Because we have to define a rating system. Because I'm confused. I
think we do this every time, but I think what we have been doing is we're going off of the grade scale.
So is 7 an
So
average?
So
If 7 is the average, then I'd go 7.2. A little above average.
Okay.
As a movie. So we're
we need to establish now. We're gonna forget this the next movie review we do, but now we're establishing it on the grading system where 7 is an average.
7 is
so in
an
that
average.
case, I'm going to give it a dead 7.
All right.
And then
I'm gonna go 7.2 as a regular movie.
Actually, you know what?
7.2.
Scratch that. I'm gonna say 6.9 because it was below average.
I'd say it was a little above average for your regular movie, as all MCU movies are. So 7.2.
Okay.
And then as an MCU movie,
6.
I would give it
6.
6.1.
All right. 6.05.
Okay. Now
All
that
right.
we're getting technical.
Yep. All right. Well, you've heard us complain enough about this movie. Let us know your complaints or anything you actually liked about the movie. Thanks for watching this video, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, and head over to Facebook and like our Facebook page. Be sure to follow Brady on Twitter at Mr. Brady Jones, and follow me on Twitter at Lee_Senor. And as always, recommend this show to your family and your friends and even your enemies. And until next time,
Adios.
amigos.